Hey everybody, welcome to episode 80 of the Is That Normal podcast, and where we just talk about influencing young people to follow Christ.
That's right. And so I want to start out today talking about a great influencing tool that has become my go-to thing to lead youth group, which is the Grow Games and Icebreaker app. So Grow is this company that makes curriculum and other supplemental things for youth ministry. And they've got this app that is like, I wish I've had this my whole time doing youth ministry because it makes things so easy. It's got all of the key ingredients for creating chaos in the midst of a bunch of young people, which
yes.
is like one of the key ingredients for good youth ministry, right?
It is.
Yes. So I wondered if maybe you had some favorite chaotic moments of youth ministry from over the years.
Boy, there's been some crazy ones. Probably, some of the most chaotic moments were back in the day before we were banned from ever playing communist church inside the building again, due to the amount of property destruction that happened. But there were some
that have not been disclosed, and I'm not sure the statutes have ran on that. So careful.
That's right. Retrieving children off of roofs and from other various places, and then really just on a weekly basis. Anytime Brett Schwenke is in charge of running a game,
yes.
If you don't know Brett is the child of Kyle Schwenke, and when he's on stage doing something like that, it becomes evident. Like Brett is so much fun, and he just knows how to roll with the flow, and you just never know what's going to happen or what's going to come out of his mouth. And so it's always chaotic, and it's always entertaining. It's one of my favorite parts of the week.
So cool. Yes, I agree. I agree. So this app has everything ready for you at a touch of a button. It's pretty cool. So it's got all sorts of, games, and it's got these filters. So, I want a game with no prep, maximum chaos, and lots of mess. You can pick all these categories, and so it's really cool. It also has all the tools you need. So it's got built-in timers and random number generators. But then one of the coolest thing that it has is this icebreaker function. So one of the tabs says icebreaker. So you click it, and then you click break the ice, and it randomizes things like agree, disagree discussions, bad dad jokes, and then my favorite, would you rathers, right? So I thought we'd start off today by playing a would you rather.
Okay.
So here you go, Randall. Right. Would you rather have only telescopes for eyes or only microscopes for eyes?
Ooh, wow. I'm gonna go microscopes.
Ooh, wow. Okay.
Because I think at telescopes, you're only gonna be able to see like things super, super far away. Yeah. It may be more disturbing to have microscopes for eyes to see what's actually like crawling around us, but
yes, the microscopic world is a little grotesque, isn't it?
Yeah, but
I think I agree. I'm probably a microscope guy too. I want to know how things work. I want to get down the the details. So microscopes are better for that. Telescopes.
So I could literally look. I could see the whatever's crawling on your skin right now.
That's absolutely great. Yes,
or in your beard or your hair or whatever.
What I had for dinner.
You do instant lice check.
Yes, yeah. Wouldn't have to get any closer. That's good. I like that. So today, as we kind of lead out of that beautiful mental picture that we just created, we want to talk about some things today because in our world, it is so important to have the right lens to look at things through. Because if we get focused on the wrong things, it can be dangerous for us, and we see temptations for that all over the place. And so today we wanted to talk to our parents and concerned adults about how we help our children have the right worldview.
Well, welcome back to the Is That Normal podcast, and if you haven't already followed us on the socials, we encourage you to do that, and we would love to hear from you. Whether that's through comment or there's email, there's tons of ways to reach out to us, and we would just love to interact with you.
Yes.
Hear your thoughts and your questions, and just make this a conversation.
Yeah, that's right.
So earlier you said that we were going to talk about worldviews today. So maybe let's start with kind of how would you define a worldview?
Yeah, so the worldview is simply the lens through which you see the world around you. You know, how you interpret things, how you make decisions, how you how you see the things for the way that they are, and it's the framework by which we interpret situations. So whatever we face, it's about our core beliefs and how those impact what we're going to do based upon whatever options are available to us each day. And so it helps us make decisions, form relationships, and ultimately it helps you determine what you believe, which is really important.
Yeah. So how do you know if you have a worldview?
So you take these two fingers and you put it right here and you see if you can feel a pulse. And if you can, then you probably have a worldview. Because really, truthfully, every one of us have a worldview. Some of us are intentional about it. Some of us might have thought about it. Some of us have never thought about it. But that doesn't mean you don't have one. Because you have a framework through which you make every decision and through which you decide what you ultimately are going to believe. And that is your worldview.
So how do we examine and maybe figure out what our worldview is?
Yeah, I think as a process, because since we live in a world where there's a lot of different ways that people look at things like this, we're going to be influenced by multiple worldviews. And so for us to kind of unlayer that and pull that apart for ourselves, it's going to have us understanding what some of those common worldviews are, and then evaluating what our views are on several key topics. And so every worldview, again, whether they know it or not, I would say answers or deals with 6 kind of key things. And so I'll list them off real quick and then we'll come back and talk about them. So it's what you believe about God, what you believe about humanity, people, what you believe about salvation, like how do we make things right in the world, what do you believe about authority, who's in charge, what you believe about time, what it's for, how it operates, and what you believe about Jesus, which is he is God, but he's a particularly divisive part of God that we have to come to terms with what we believe about him. So and in that, again, every worldview, whether they know it or not, has a belief about that. So you say, well, how can it be about God and Jesus? What about atheists? Well, atheists have a viewpoint. So an atheist doesn't believe in God. But that is the framework with which they make decisions. They choose to believe that there isn't a God or there isn't a creator, and so that informs how they operate and how they believe about certain things. And so you jump to the other end of that scale, and so what do they believe about Jesus? Well, certain types of atheists might believe that he's a fiction, and certain type of atheists might believe he was just a good man and a good teacher, and we should follow his teachings, but he wasn't anything supernatural. But then you go the other side of some worldviews, and you've got Christianity, which obviously holds that God is the creator of the universe and that he exists eternally, in 3 parts as Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. And but there's other belief systems that also believe in God. Hindus believe in God. Yeah. They just don't believe in the same God we believe in. They actually believe in multiple gods. You go back to Greek and Romans, they believed in this pantheon of Zeus and Artemis and all of these kind of pieces of different types of gods. So all of those worldviews inform how you're going to make decisions. Humanity is a big one. Yeah. Are people, Randall, basically good or basically bad? Like that's a big question, and your worldview is going to impact how you answer that question.
And there's so many different things that affect what our worldview is. I know you mentioned some of the outside factors, and I know, our upbringing or our past or our stories heavily influence that, even like you said, whether we know it or not. So So with all of these different worldviews, you mentioned you kind of just scratched the surface. There's tons of them, but how do we make sure that our families have the right one?
Yeah, first of all, you kind of got to have a handle on what the different types of worldviews are. So I'd say there's really 3 big camps of worldviews. Okay, so there's the theistic worldviews, which so that's Christianity, and that's Islam, that's Hinduism, Buddhism, and so you have to help them discern how we figure out who the right God is, and so in that there's different beliefs in that. So how do we determine who the right God is? So that's one area that we've got to answer the question. The other. Another one of the big camps of worldviews is what I would call the naturalist worldview, which I really probably up until recently has been one of the biggest influencers for the last couple centuries. So that's the Darwinistic evolutionary theology of, that we came from soup and we crawled ourselves out of the mire and, and we were the strongest sludge, so we survived. And, but you take that beyond that, it really comes down to that we're nothing more than animals. And that's really what a naturalist viewpoint is. And probably the biggest impact I see on a daily basis, still how that influences us, is the sexual revolution.
Yeah.
Because that in itself is a worldview. Because how many times do you watch any sort of media where sex isn't portrayed as like the ultimate goal of relationships? And as that being the ultimate goal, it goes back to that sexual revolution. There's nothing about the spiritual, religious, social commitment type of parts of what relationships should be. And that's all influenced by a naturalistic worldview. And so, again, we're all influenced by that in our culture today. And then the third big camp of that is the modern, postmodern, which are terms you've probably heard, but really that's a humanistic worldview, which is that my reason and my opinion is ultimate. And so that kind of leads me to so how do you sort through all that?
Yeah.
Well, it comes down to an issue of authority. I mean, if you think through all of those worldviews, it's all about authority. So when I make a decision, I'm making a decision based on some authority. So what authority is that? Is that the authority of scientific evidence? Is that the authority of myself and my personal opinion and what I want?
Yeah.
Or is that, the influence of some religious idea or some desire to, follow what I think God has told me to do? And so all of those are different types of authority. And I know probably if we were honest, like every time I make a decision, it might be kind of like a wheel of fortune. I mean, I pick this authority sometimes, and I pick this authority sometimes. And so that's part of why this is so important for us to talk about, because we want to have like a purity, I think, in the right worldview.
So along those lines, as we kind of try to sort this out and understand how do we help our family have the right worldview, something that I know a lot of people maybe have very different thoughts on, is how do we navigate, like for your children, how much do you talk about what those other worldviews are versus, isolating and maybe I know some people want to kind of shield their children and only say this is the only worldview, and really not expose them to others, and others feel like that maybe they should. And so how do you balance that?
Yeah, I think I would kick back just a little bit to some things we've talked about in educational philosophy, because that's going to be different in different stages in a kid's development. So so if you're talking about younger kids, just like in younger kids, we want to give them rote memory type of teaching because they're sponges, and we want to fill them with the correct information. When kids are younger, we don't need to say, well, here's Buddha and here's Zeus and here's Jesus. You pick which one you like. I mean, we don't want to do that. That's not what we want to do. We want to teach them truth at a level where they can understand it. Tell them the history of Christianity. Tell them the history of the Bible. Introduce them to the characters of God and all the people in His story. And so we do that at a young age. But somewhere in the beginning of teenage years, which is we aim at those, teenage and young adult age groups as far as some of the information we're sharing. You've got to talk to them about these other worldviews, because if you don't, they're going to get influenced by them, whether you like it or whether they know it or not. And so we better start talking about it. So one of the things I'm excited about is in a couple weeks at our church with our high school group, we're going to start a little series on worldview. And so if you are a part of our church or you're in our area and you've got a child or grandchild or a niece or a nephew who's in the high school age, we challenge you to send them here starting December 1st. We're going to do it for 3 Wednesdays, because I think it's just so important for us to talk about that. And so you as a parent or a concerned adult in that, one of the first things you can do, if they're coming to our series, start asking them on Wednesday night or Thursday morning, hey, what did you learn about? Hey, what were some of the things that stood out to you? And begin a conversation and listen to what they have to say. Because I think my next point in that is that we don't want at that stage to be as much about indoctrination as we are in helping them explore, what all the different ideas are to discern what is absolutely true.
Yeah.
And there's so many good ways to talk about all that and try to point out to them how some of these other worldviews are so flawed.
Yeah.
But we've got to let them figure some of that out as we have a discussion with them.
And I think that's important, because I think there can be a fear there of like exposing them to other worldviews, and the fear that they're going to choose that or go that direction, but there's a danger, like you said, in not doing that, because they're going to be influenced one way or the other. And so, there's also we've talked about in some of our other episodes, there's also that point where they kind of leave the nest, whether that's going to college or going to kind of out into the real world where they're going to be exposed to it. And so better to be able to do that in that controlled environment and help them understand and process those things ahead before that time comes.
Yeah. And I know for us, a great tool or habit that we've used is just trying to identify worldview moments in things that we experienced throughout the day. Whether it's watching a movie or a TV show, whether it's the meme that they're wanting to show you that stood out to them today, whether it's, conversations they're reflecting to that they have with their friends, or hopefully questions they're asking you about, what to believe about different aspects of life. As you go through those, I think it's good to point out and say, well, where that comes from, or what that belief, what's behind that statement or that belief or that opinion. Well, it's this type of a worldview. And as we can help them start identifying that's how they're going to be able to solidify their own worldview and figure out what the correct worldview is, as they start seeing the flaws of these other worldviews that are informing things that stand out to them in their life, and things that maybe don't feel right to them. Yeah. But it helps them have some teeth and to figure out how to figure that out. So
and I would offer, even though it may be scary, if they're asking those questions, if they're thinking about those things, even if they're difficult questions, or maybe you feel like they're they don't have it all grasped yet, that's a healthy thing.
Yeah, I think as parents sometimes the fear, like if they come and they say, I was wondering about this thing, or what's Wicca, or they start asking these questions like that, and you're like, oh no, you're panicked, like we're losing them, but really, if they feel safe enough to come ask you that question, they're trying to figure this out, and that's good.
Absolutely.
And so we need to not panic. We need to lean in. We need to listen, but we need to start giving them tools to discern those things. And maybe one of the best tools is simply for us to begin sharing why we hold the worldview we do. Yeah. And so I've really tried, especially with my older children, to get away from saying, well, this is the right thing to believe. I start saying, this is what I believe and why. And because while I do believe this is the right way to believe, and I can back that up, they have to decide that. Yeah. I can't make them decide that. I can't tell them they have to because I want them to. They need to. So I want them to see my pathway to get to what I have believed. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So maybe share some resources or some things.
Yeah. So if you're out there going, wow, this is really interesting, or wow, I don't quite get it yet, I'd really challenge you to research and dig into this. And there's lots of great things out there. There's lots of great books on it, but two just real quick, easy places that I would send people. Focus on the Family has some great tools that they have put together to help parents and adults talk to young people about worldview. And so I'll put a link in our notes to that. And so they got two particular resources. One's kind of like a little study session that maybe you want to do as a family, and the other's just a set of videos that you can watch, or you can have your kids watch, that I think are really helpful. I have some of the best minds in Christian thought involved in them, and just helping understand some of these things. And then Sean McDowell has a website which we'll put out there, and he is just really got tons and tons of great resources about why we believe what we believe as Christians, and what some of the things the world believes that are flawed, and why they're flawed. And he just has lots of articles and videos and just all sorts of material. And so you could just dig for hours through that. But also the great thing about that is if your children have a particular question, you can go to his website and search that topic, and you'll most likely find some good content to help you out with that. So those would be two great places to start.
Yeah, that's super helpful. So as we wrap up today, our two takeaways. The first is maybe do some research, maybe check out those resources that you talked about, and some soul searching, and maybe just stop. For some of us, maybe we've never actually stopped and thought about what is my worldview, what do I believe, and why do I believe that. Right. So maybe take some time to do that, so that maybe when those opportunities for conversations come up with your kids, you can share that. This is why I believe what I believe, right. and then the second thing is to create and look for those opportunities to have those conversations with your kids, and don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to. For them to ask questions and to ask them questions.
That's a good place. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Be abnormal.